What's going on, my people? Welcome back to the channel. Here, Sports Talk with me, Clem Boogie. Today, we're going to talk about the Deshaun Watson final saga. Yes, this last straw has fallen. NFL and the NFLPA have come to an agreement on Deshaun Watson's final decision as far as length of his suspension and fine that he will be paying in the foreseeable future. So what was agreed upon was an 11-game suspension and $5 million to, I guess, whatever charitable fund or whatever the case may be. So let's dive into it. Everyone's at fault in this case and scenario. That's just my opinion. The NFL is at fault, and why I say that is because they had rules in place for misconduct off the field and situations like that. This isn't the first instance where the NFL has had to deal with an athlete dealing with off the field issues and, just egregious behavior. Obviously, it's all been alleged. Since then, there has been settlements, I believe 24, 25 women, and yes, it's been handled on the surface. But as far as longevity, everyone is here to accept blame, even Deshaun. Deshaun put himself in that situation, whether or not he's guilty or not. As I stated before, it's been alleged. But, 25 accusations, it doesn't look great. And the manner in which he went about getting in touch with these massage therapists or whatever you want to call them, he went through social media. So there's a paper trail. There's some lining to track. And, whatever happens in the dark seemingly comes into the light. With all that being said, initially Deshaun had a 6-game suspension, and that was levied by Sue L. Robinson, who works for the NFL at high office, and she was presiding over the initial case. And what came out of that was that the bylaws that the NFL had just weren't severe. These are things that were kind of tallied enough to where past transgressions, but nothing up to date to kind of, punish how severe these allegations were levied against Deshaun Watson. With all that being said, the NFL was not happy with the 6-game decision that was given at that point in time. Hence, they appealed. Everyone knew they would appeal. Due to public outcry, optics, etc. All these things play a part into it. But where I say the NFL is at fault is that, number one, these are your bylaws. These are all things that were already pre-written from past transgressions. And, these are things that were agreed upon from both sides of the spectrum. A being the NFL owners and also the NFLPA. So with that being said, it seems like the NFL tried and seemingly changed the rules as they were going. But also, too, like I said, Deshaun is also at fault. He's at fault in the sense of thinking that 6 games were going to stand. We live in a society where social media is blown up. It's evolving. People know who you are, number one, being an athlete and understanding that you are in the public eye 24/7. So whatever situations that you find yourself in, just be aware. And unfortunately, what was alleged, is and are very egregious, and there's just no place for it. There are people's lives that are going to be scarred for the foreseeable future. People who have certain point of views of one Deshaun Watson kind of have changed in the sense that he was poster guy for well-modeled citizen, and just puts a big scar on that, big scar on that. So let's dive into it some more. Deshaun is he's a young man. I don't take that away. He's a lot of growing up to do, like all of us had to. We were all young at one point. But I think the decision making is very porous. He wasn't very tactful He was not very contrite, I guess, in how the public had perceived his apology. Because since then, like I said, there have been settlements. They had tried initially for a criminal case against him that was shot down, but it did reach a civil matter to where it had to get settled ultimately get settled out of court. No one wins. And I think at this point in time, he understands that. Mind you, Deshaun hasn't played football in almost a year and a half. By the time this situation is resolved itself, we're talking about 11 game suspension. So you're saying he's going to be possibly being reinstated by week 13. It would be almost 2 years or a little after 2 years since he's been on the field playing live action football. Now, he himself has to understand your character has been tarnished due to your alleged behavior. That's your fault. It's no one's fault to their own. It's your fault. Whether you sought these women or not, it's your fault. Because they don't know their name. They know Deshaun Watson. That's you. So you got to take that and lay in it. As far as the NFL, I'm beginning, and not necessarily beginning, I've always known and seen how they pick and choose of what they want to rule, how they want to dictate, and how they seemingly want to punish. If you remember a few years back, people who are diehard football fans, remember the Ben Roethlisberger situation? Ben Roethlisberger was QB for Pittsburgh Steelers, and, Hall of Famer, I don't take away from him. Big Ben. Everybody, on the field loved Big Ben. He had similar situation, sexual misconduct. Some would call it rape. He was given 4 games. Didn't have to go through the rigors of much of anything, but they gave him 4 games and they stood on it. Since then, everyone seemingly forgot about it. If you are, again, someone who is well in tune with the NFL, it just kind of got brushed under the rug, and he went on with his career. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and, it's whatever. But Deshaun, I think, has to understand, you get policed by a different system. And for all those that understand, you don't need any explanation from that. But as it pertains to the Cleveland Browns, the franchise, they are dealt a devastating blow. They don't have their shiny new toy, being Deshaun Watson, and they are left in disarray as far as who's going to be manning the quarterback situation for them for the majority of the season, and how the team will ultimately respond in a tough AFC North. Now let's talk about it. The AFC North has Cleveland Browns, obviously. They have the Cincinnati Bengals. They have the Baltimore Ravens, and they have the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's not an easy task. All 4 teams that I've mentioned like to hit. Very physical division. They are the epitome. They only stop when they see blood. And even then, they don't stop. But as it pertains to Cleveland Browns, I don't think they're too dark in the waters. I think they still have a chance. They still have Jacoby Brissett. They have Josh Dobbs. And there's even talks of them looking into what's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo up in 49er town. So depending on how that transpires, they could be in possibly good shape, whoever is deemed the starter. But for right now, I'm going to say Jacoby Brissett is very serviceable. He comes out of the Patriots winning tree. He's also had a starting role with the Indianapolis Colts. So he knows the ropes. He's a proven winner. He's a talent. He's he can run, he can throw. He's a winner. So they're in good hands. And as far as Josh Dobbs, he's unproven, but he's there for a reason. And I'm sure if his number is called up, he'll be ready to step up. But that doesn't take away from the other weapons that they may have. On offense, they are loaded. I mean, obviously, we've heard, Kareem Hunt wanting the trade because he wants to get paid and things of that nature. But they do have a two-headed monster there. They have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is scary. If anybody have seen Nick Chubb run, I've seen him running from his Georgia days till now. He's tough. You don't want to be running one-on-one and be lined up one-on-one and have to be the task of trying to tackle Nick Chubb. You just don't want to do it. Then, to top it off, when you sub him out, you have Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is Flash. Flash is all over the screen, whether on the swing pass, on a handoff, he knows how to jump off the screen. Then in their wide receiving group, they have Amari Cooper. Sorry, not Stoudemire, Amari Cooper. And they have Peoples-Jones. They have big pieces there. They have David Njoku manning the middle. They're all over the place. On defense, they do have a terror bookends. They have Myles Garrett. They have Jadeveon Clowney. And on the back end, they have Ward. It's not going to be an easy task. I don't care who you are. And in that division, it's going to be hard. But they have a very, very viable team, and they're going to pose a very viable threat, no matter who they play. I think the drawback is that not having Deshaun, everyone thinks that the season is at a loss. I don't think so. Even though Cleveland has had a history of, just, not doing well and just bombing overall, doesn't mean this year can't be an outlier. People have to understand it's a team sport. Yes, it is Deshaun. A lot of it is circled around Deshaun, the success that Deshaun will bring, the intangibles that he will potentially bring in the foreseeable future. But it is a team sport. It's any given Sunday. You're not going to be any team just being a one-man team. If that's the case, you might as well just pack up and leave, because no team is going to let you beat them predicated on one man. I think a lot of times people forget, you being lined up against someone else, they get paid too, just like you do. So you have to understand, nothing is easy. Nothing is given. So it's going to be very interesting. But if you're asking me on a betting situation or things like that, I think the Browns will be underdogs coming into their first, I want to say 5 to 7 games. I know they start off, with a familiar face against Baker Mayfield and Carolina Panthers. And you never know. You just never know. The Panthers are, they're like middle of the pack. If that, they have their quandaries that they're dealing with. But, everything remains to be seen. But with that being said, as it pertains to Deshaun Watson, look, he made his bed as far as this alleged problem he brought onto himself. I think what's going to make it drag on more and more is how he shows his contrition and how remorseful he is and how he perseveres. Maybe he goes into a couple speaking engagements. Maybe he apologizes more than he already has. I mean, there's no length, there's no measure to what he's going to have to do to kind of re-engage and kind of get out of that, disgraceful eye of being a predator. Right now, that's what people are going to look at him as. He's a man, pro athlete, that makes a lot of money, and they feel that first off, that pro athletes get away with everything and anything, sort of the God complex. But I think a lot of people have to understand is that, they're human too. And these troubles do carry along, and unbeknownst to himself, he's going to have to deal with it. When he does step on that football field, wherever that may be, he's going to have to deal with the crowds, the jeers, the craziness, the backlash, the signs, all the bad publicity, everything. But again, he brought it on to himself. As it pertains to the NFL, you just never know with them. They like I said before, they pick and choose what they want to do. So in that sense, you just never know. You're dealing with Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to the NFL and the different situations that they deal with. But with that being said, I hope Deshaun learns the errors of his ways, and understands that it's very detrimental not to himself but to his team. And if he has a family, I know they're looking down upon it, and it's a very disgraceful situation altogether. But with that being said, let's just hope everyone can get past this situation, everyone can heal and move on. With that being said, Cleveland, I think you're in decent shape. I'm not saying you're going to win the Super Bowl, but I do think you have a puncher's chance each and every Sunday. It's going to be interesting for you, especially when you line up against the Baltimore and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Basically everybody in your division. It's going to be very challenging because there's no days off, no weeks off. But you guys to me have a small puncher's chance to me. That's what I think. But with that being said, watch me work.